Americans, regardless of background, regardless of circumstance, regardless of age, are able to secure a great job in our roaring economy. Across the country, we are experiencing record low unemployment across every demographic. One of the demographics that is most vulnerable, though, is the formerly incarcerated. So the president has not only in our policies, whether it is starting a pilot program to expand Pell Grants to prisoners like DOE launched just this past year, or whether it's more generally investing in workforce development and training programs, career and technical education, whether it's signing the First Step Act into law, a long pursued and not achieved goal until this president was able to bring those important criminal justice reforms to fruition. But the rate of unemployment for the formerly incarcerated is substantially above the non-incarcerated population. It's north of 27% by some estimates, and he set a goal of bringing that down in the next 5 years to single digits. So we're very excited to see that happen, and programs like the Last Mile are going to help ensure that those who are returning to our communities, and we know that 95% of those that are incarcerated will be going home, and that the likelihood of going back to prison goes up exponentially if you're unable to secure a job. So we're helping through discussions like we had today to bridge that gap and create connections to the skills necessary to succeed in the workforce upon moving. So just an incredible experience, and the Last Mile is really a tremendous program doing great work. So I'd like to welcome everyone here today as we kick off this fourth board meeting. This has been an incredible board and an amazing experience, and I'm so grateful to each of you for the time that you've contributed and the hard work that you put into realizing the 4 goals that we as a board have coalesced around. So I said in the very beginning when I first began outreaches as we were creating this council that this was not going to be a board that produced a report that would go sit on a shelf and maybe inform 1 or 2 people across the federal government but not be utilized beyond that. But this would be an action-oriented board where you all, with your diverse experience, whether it be the private sector, academia, and the trade associations and industries, would come and inform the work that we're doing as we develop a national workforce strategy and bring unique value to the table. And you've really done just that. So today I'm incredibly excited to hear more about the campaign that is being developed and will be launched in January, about the interoperable learning record that is being developed by this group, and Governor Holcomb, you and SAP and your working group has done some amazing heavy lifting on, and all the other elements that we're going to discuss as we think about making sure that in this economy, the aperture is open and the pathways are available for all Americans to secure employment. So thank you again for your hard work. Thank you for being here with us this morning. And with that, I'll invite my co-chair, Secretary Ross, to say a few words, and it's with great appreciation to his whole team at Commerce for the tremendous work they do, and the team at the White House. Rosemary, between each of these meetings, I have to say, maybe quarterly, but our teams individually are meeting with tremendous frequency, and that's why things are getting done. So we appreciate their great work as well. Secretary Ross?
Well, thank you, Ivanka. Thank you especially for inventing this whole idea and for your wonderful leadership to the group. You're the reason it's being productive, not just a report. Thank you, too, Governor Holcomb, for inviting us to Indianapolis and for the wonderful evening we spent at the Indy Speedway. I have to confess, I dreamed last night all about the thrill of being a race car driver. As we learned this morning, reentry programs like the Last Mile should be replicated in every state in the country to create career paths for the 2.3 million inmates and to help fill the 7 million odd vacant jobs in this country. And early results show that more than 70% of participants in somewhat similar programs turn out to be loyal and effective workers. And the recidivism rate is low. In fact, for last mile, I've heard it's 0. That's an incredible achievement on their part. So it's a win-win for everyone. And your initiative at the Indiana Women's Prison builds on the work begun when Vice President Pence was governor. Very few other states have been able to maintain a vibrant industrial base by focusing on a skilled workforce and economic development. In September, this advisory board's 4 working groups delivered 13 excellent recommendations. They're posted on the board's website. And as Ivanka noted, we shared those recommendations with the National Council for the American Worker. Now we're seeing them through to fruition, to implementation. The board had asked for an inventory of labor market data and a new tool to provide clear information on local labor force participation and the characteristics of people who are outside the labor force. Commerce's Census Bureau will launch this on December 10th of this year as part of the new data curation hub. I'd lose my job otherwise. Thank you. In addition, a joint working group of the Census Bureau and the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been examining how to develop a local labor market situation tool. Interestingly, they found that the data already exists, but it's scattered around in different formats and across multiple websites. So the challenge is to bring these data points together in one format to help companies understand the availability of workers. So early next year, they will issue a public call for the creation of such a tool through the popular challenge.gov website. I hope you'll all participate in that. Elsewhere, Bureau of Labor Statistics has committed to continuing its state-level jobs opening and labor turnover survey, the so-called JOLT private pilot program. It's working with state and local governments to improve the collection of the data. We're also working with the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council to develop a playbook for community leaders to provide residents in opportunity zones with the right skills for needed jobs. And as Barbara will discuss shortly, we've drawn upon recommendations from her working group to develop a program for a new award program. During today's discussion, we'll learn about ongoing work related to interoperable learning records and the Multiple Pathways campaign. That's going to be an amazing promotional campaign that will kick off in January. Our working group co-chairs will provide updates on their progress since September, and will seek the full board's input on specific questions relating to their ongoing projects. Our discussions will guide the working groups as they draft recommendations for the board's final 2 meetings in March and June. Finally, let's welcome Jennifer Morgan to the advisory board. As CEO of SAP, she brings a unique perspective to workforce issues, since SAP's projects are integrated with virtually every industry in the world. Unfortunately, I must leave today's meeting in a few minutes early to attend an unexpected White House meeting, but I look forward to hearing about today's discussion. So now I ask our esteemed host, Governor Holcomb, to provide some remarks and his perspective on our activity.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and Ivanka for selecting this exact location. We're on behalf of 6.6 and growing number of Hoosiers, we're honored to host this gathering. We're so happy that you got to see our most iconic asset last night. As exciting as that was, taking a hot lap around the track, I thought today lived up to our expectations. And already we still have our work to do. By the way, it's always sunny and 50 in December in Indiana, so we dialed this in for you. But the reason why I mentioned last night that I was so excited to get to this morning, and you can tell, I just felt like a proud papa, showing off the programs that are just still in their infancy, quite frankly. We really do feel like we're just getting started. But these programs are making such a huge difference. They're turning, ideas into action. They're allowing the individual to not just think about, but to realize that, in fact, they do get to determine their own destiny when they are properly equipped and resourced. And so this is the salary of the service that we provide. They've seen these lives turned around. The last mile, obviously, with a 0% recidivism rate, is one that we hold up high. We're at now 5 facilities in the state of Indiana, pretty competitive around here in the state, and I heard loud and clear that California has 7. So while we're at 5 today, we plan on continuing to scale up in our state and hopefully positively influence more folks while they're inside. And I think that's what's important about the 4 to 5 vocational training programs that you saw today is we are aligning the potential that's inside the wire with the demand that's outside. And so that hope or that thought of hope turns into a reality. And you heard the confident ladies present their cases already this morning. And so we'll continue to scale up. It was brought up earlier that how many, Tim, you asked, at one point there were only 6 folks in the class, and that was a perfect example of, we're at 6 right now, but we won't be at 6 next year. We'll be much higher than that. There's about 800 ladies here inside in this facility, and we seek to get to every single one of them and allow them to figure out what they're passionate about so they can pursue that when tomorrow comes. These programs are working. I mentioned that we're just at the outset, but they're working here in the state of Indiana since 2017. Our recidivism rate has gone down 4%. And when you're talking about a budget of about $758 million, that's real dollars that get to be reallocated to other successful programs. In addition to the programs that are happening inside, we have a complementing program on the outside called Next Level Jobs. And in states like Indiana, that has a 3.2% unemployment rate, Iowa's probably less than that, we have got to be competitive on the outside as well, getting people attached to those skill sets that they need. So, again, that they get to determine how far they want to go, at what scale and pace that they want to pursue that. We have skilled up just over the last couple of years and gotten 21,000 Hoosiers credentialed free in terms of the skill seeker. The state's putting the skin in the game if they will put their time in. And so they're getting credentials and certificates. We've added another 9,100 Hoosiers into these high-demand credentialed areas that we know up 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out into the future, we're going to need more and more workers. So we're not celebrating yet by any stretch of the imagination. Again, just getting started. But these complements that work, we're going to continue to do more of them and less of what doesn't. That's why I'm just so proud to partner with this board because we, too, are turning ideas into action, just like the ladies that we heard from this morning. So, welcome.
Thank you again, Dr. And that's often said that if we can't believe it can't happen. And we saw a lot of women who actually, just as we were leaving, I met a woman who had gone through the program. She's having her interview today about whether and when she's coming out, but it will be shortly. And I was asking her how these skills would be applicable to life on the outside for her and what she's seeking to harness and leverage them as she moves forward. And she was saying that she had never been on the internet before. She's been here for 20 years. So just even that difference. So imagine going through a program like this prior to having ever accessed the internet. So it's just incredible, and I think just super inspiring. But you know, as you were saying, and as we turn to the broader topic today and launch into the different subcommittees, the first one that's up is Barbara Humpton, co-chairing from Siemens, is about measuring and encouraging employer-led training and investments. And again, this is so important. We launched at the White House something called our Pledge to America's Workers. The goal of this was to catalyze private sector commitments and interest in signing up to train or skill or reskill a specific number of people over a specific number of time and create that actual commitment. Because this is something that is not being rigorously measured. This is not being rigorously committed to at many companies across the country, and that's starting to shift. And one of the reasons it's starting to shift is employers are being forced to get creative because of the record low unemployment numbers that we expect. And that creates tremendous opportunity for workers. Wages are going up. But amazingly, and this president has created 6.7 million new jobs since he was elected. But in the last year, of all the jobs secured in the economy, 73% of them went to those outside of the workforce. Not even on unemployment, totally outside of the workforce that had been disconnected. Like some of the women that we were meeting with today that weren't figured into the workforce participation rate. So seeing that number start to go up is incredibly rewarding. We want to continue to drive that. And I didn't see many of the companies represented around this table. Barbara, your company and seeing great work Siemens doing. With Tim in Texas, seeing great work Apple's doing. Doug, with you also in Texas, great work Walmart's doing. So we appreciate that. And with that, maybe Barbara, you'll take us off in talking about how we can more rigorously measure the commitment that the private sector is doing and accelerate their call to action.
Yes, thank you, Ivanka, and thank you to Secretary Ross. It is such a privilege to be part of this group. And thank you, Governor Holcomb, for a truly fantastic day yesterday and the inspiring moments we had this morning. Yesterday, I had the great experience of meeting some drivers from one of the Indy teams that Siemens sponsors. And, you know, it's a real privilege to actually get to see our technology out in action. This really has been wonderful, and I want to just give a shout-out to Al Kelly. It was at our first meeting that Al said, let's not meet in Washington, D.C. Let's get out and experience what's going on across the country. So thanks to the Team Visa for really spurring us along here. Now, unfortunately, my co-chair, my team of the Milken Institute can't be with us here in Indianapolis. He has been really hard at work on a number of things that are critical aspects of our working group, and specifically working on the future ownership and functionality of the pledge. And I know he looks forward to presenting to the entire board on those activities when we next meet. But I'll assure you the whole working group has been hard at work on a variety of fronts to build on the recommendations that we highlighted at the board meeting in September that are in line with the President's executive order. Specifically, the things we focused on are that scope and functionality of the pledge, the creation of an award to recognize companies that demonstrate excellence in workplace education, training, and retraining policies and investments, and on data collection, specifically work that Marianne Wanamaker is leading on measuring training investments through federal surveys. And I must say the opening remarks from Secretary Ross were fantastic. I'll tell you in our working group meetings, what we've learned is the tremendous collaboration that's going on between commerce and labor on topics where we have really appreciated now seeing topics come together and be presented with one voice. This has been fantastic collaboration. Now, recognizing that we've got about 25 minutes on the agenda to cover a lot of ground, I'm going to be focusing in on two specific areas. I want to give you a high-level overview of the award proposal the working group has been reviewing and discussing with Department of Commerce staff. And I'm hoping that after hearing why we think this is the best approach to take, we'll be able to have a discussion about the hallmarks of true excellence in employer training investment. So my remarks will be brief, but we'll have a little bit of dialogue here as members of the team. By the way, do I look like I have a halo around my head? The sun is shining on me today. Thank you, Governor. After we debate and dissect our possible criteria, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann to provide a quick update on the research she's leading on measuring training investments through federal surveys. So let's get started. As you all hopefully know, as of November 2019, more than 370 companies and organizations have signed the pledge, contributing to over 14 million new education and training opportunities for American students and workers over the next 5 years. I mean, this is just tremendous progress. I know this far outstrips your original goal, Veronica. And then our working group has been working with the Departments of Commerce and Labor to create a new presidential award to recognize demonstrated excellence in implementing the pledge. And these competitive awards organizations and companies for the skills-based training program, including apprenticeships that were established to fulfill their pledges and are producing measurable and replicable benefits for workers, companies, and their communities. As many of you will remember, this was a specific task laid out in the executive order establishing the President's National Council for the American Worker in July of 2018, and the Presidential Executive Order expanding apprenticeships in America, signed in June 2017. And this program will fulfill the requirements of both executive orders, each of which called for the creation of programs to recognize excellence in employer training investments. So the Department of Commerce will administer the award program with support from the Department of Labor on behalf of the National Council for the American Worker. Now, the award design borrowed from the globally emulated Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award and the National Medal of Technology and Innovation, both presidential-level recognition. As many of you may remember from our discussion in September, we found that although employers offer many types of training that are essential to employers and employees, one of the recommendations our working group made during that board meeting was to distinguish between skills-based training and other types of training offered by employers. So the proposal made by the Department of Commerce, both departments, and Labor would reflect that recommendation and would adopt our definition of skills-based training: the initial skill training, job maintenance training, upskilling, and employee development. Through discussions both within the working group and the Department of Commerce staff, we believe that it would be beneficial and appropriate to tie the award directly to the pledge to America's workers. Ideally, we believe we can do this in two specific ways. First, we would make sure the pledge is reflected in the name of the award. And two, only pledge organizations would be eligible to apply. Now, we believe this approach helps not only with branding and operations quite a bit, it also creates a nice structure to encourage follow-up with pledge entities, as they would want to demonstrate their implementation of the pledge. Given the renaming and scope of the award, it would mean that there would be no formal role for this board to play in the award process, if only because there would be a high conflict of interest, as many of us have made our own pledges. In fact, we believe that it would be appropriate for board members to not be eligible during the first year of the award while we continue to serve in this capacity. So the National Council will own the process and should manage the final development of the criteria, and the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board can formally endorse the concept and be present to help honor the first round of awardees. However, as the Departments of Commerce and Labor continue to finalize the specific details about criteria for applicants, we're hoping that given the diverse group we have here today, we'll be able to gather your opinions about the best criteria for identifying the measurable results among the companies that have been implementing training under the Pledge to America's Workers. You know, the award criteria will very likely have factors around strategy and around implementation, but the most critical piece is the results. And much as we've performed as a board, we've got to be focused on action. So let me begin just by sharing, and I just want to take a few minutes for this, begin by sharing that at Siemens, when we talk about what is the return on investment for investing in worker training, one of the things that emerges very quickly from our data is that we see a higher rate of retention for employees in whom we've invested. And apprenticeship programs are a fantastic illustration of this, where if we actually include employees early in their days in an apprenticeship program, we see a very loyal, sort of an attachment to the corporation. Likewise, with other development we do throughout employees' careers, investing in people tells them they're important to us, and they tend to stay. And why is that important to businesses? Well, because it really reduces that tremendous cost of replacement, retraining, all of the churn that goes on with workforce turnover. So for us, that's one very important correlation. Now, we can also see correlation in a focus on specific areas that are pertinent to business growth arenas. And so tying the business results, and I'll even say shareholder results, in new areas of business with the training that we've been performing in those areas is highly correlated and can be causal. So those are two things that I would put forward as things that we might highlight in an award application to demonstrate the effectiveness and the return on investment of employer-led training. I'd just like to open up for a bit of dialogue from members of the board to see what other, Doug, I see you might have some.
Yeah, Barbara, I think our experience has been very similar to yours, and the idea of this award makes a lot of sense. And the metrics, I think, will be fairly straightforward. I think quantitative customer metrics come to mind. Customer satisfaction will certainly be important. But there are also important quantitative input metrics related to retention. I think your words are exactly what we've experienced. As we've invested in training, we have seen retention improve, and it's so important that that happens in today's environment, especially with a low unemployment situation like we have now, which is great, but also because jobs are changing and tasks are being remixed into jobs, and we need to be able to train people and prepare them for what's coming next. So investing in our associates has definitely paid off, and it's showing up in areas like our training academies. Ivanka mentioned that she got to come to one in Texas where she put on VR goggles and learned how to stock our vegetable wall. She has a future with green leafy vegetables should she choose to pursue it. But so far, since we signed the pledge, we've taken 700,000 individuals, over 1 million different trainings through these academy experiences so far, and it's really paying off. I think one thing related to the award that might apply from our experience is the qualitative metrics should also be considered. Teaching customer service skills, empathy, for example, how to coach and be a leader, how to communicate. We certainly saw that this morning. There was as much pressure on our presenters today to communicate well as there was to know their content, and they nailed it. And so I think those kinds of soft skills ought to be recognized in the award as we design it well.
Anybody else at the table who'd like to comment or add?
And I think it's really important for us to tell us what their metrics has been. And I think about that in the context of the SEC is currently considering how to elicit kind of human resource management content from publicly traded companies, and they don't quite yet know what metrics for. So I think it's good to make an open space and let people tell us what the important things are.
I would also say employee surveys, employee morale may be the most important one, at least from my point of view. We don't have a deep belief in ROI as it relates to education because it's such a long-term investment, very difficult to measure real time. but I think all of us intuitively know that happier employees are much more productive and much more creative, and you can measure those things. And so I would encourage the use of morale surveys.
And I totally agree. I think one of the elements for retention, for productivity, it's incredibly important, and we see the people going through these programs. The result is that they have the skills to secure jobs, and it makes them in demand, and they feel valued. And I think if you feel valued, if you feel like your skill set is current, fresh, and in demand, then by its nature, you have been invested in. And I think for a lot of companies, they may have a large workforce, but that workforce may be worried that their skill set is on the brink of becoming obsolete. So I think for all employers, not only thinking about the next generation having cutting-edge skills as they come into the workforce, but how to sharpen skills and maintain the relevancy of the skills of the existing workforce. So I think asking a question of a workforce population of how in demand and how transferable are the skills that you have and that you secure during your time of employment, I think would be really interesting.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate everybody's input on this, and I love the idea of the quantitative and qualitative. We're working to get to something which really is bigger. It's bigger than the classic discussion in business of shareholder return. This is absolutely timely, and it dovetails well with the dialogue that's happening right now about our larger purpose. So thank you. I appreciate the discussion. Did you have something else?
And with that, we'll segue to.
I'm sorry. I wanted to briefly hand off to Mary Ann because I think everybody's going to want to hear about the data collection activities there. Thank you.
Sure. I just want to say thank you to Barbara and to Mike, who's not here, for leading this working group so well. I think what we've discovered in this working group is that we're going to want to make the case out of this committee, out of this to the broader population about why it's important to measure employer-provided training. We sort of taken it as a given on this board, given the executive order. So we're going to want to make that case, and also going to want to make the case about why we need federal action on this. So the working group has come to an understanding that if we're really going to measure economy-wide, that we're going to have to do that through a federal survey. So some of us in this group have spent the last 3 months in intensive information gathering mode, including lots of calls to the Department of Labor, Census, Department of Education. Of those calls has really been to make sure that we understand the current baseline of what data gathering is happening at a federal level on worker training, which everyone agrees is sparse, but it certainly isn't currently zero. And we wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything. Those conversations information anew. We're going to restart. Better. Yeah. So we've been able to ask the experts in those conversations, okay, so suppose that we really wanted to measure employer-provided training county-wide, what federal surveys would you recommend that we use? What sorts of questions should we ask? What's the most efficient way of getting to that answer? In each of those groups, Labor, Census, Education have given us their view, and they've also, I think this is the most exciting part, they've also started to talk to each other about this exact topic, which I don't think would have happened without our questioning. So the bottom line is the path forward for how to implement an economy-wide survey isn't obvious, and thus we've decided that the best way forward is one of transparency and thoroughness, and so the group is preparing a white paper on this exact topic, where we review the motivations, why we want to do this, why we need federal action to do so, what our current baseline is, and then lay out some options for how we might achieve this bigger, better picture of training. It's important to remember, of course, that our ultimate audience is going to have to be Congress and the agencies. They've got to do something in order for this to happen, and so we're writing the paper with them in mind. So that process is ongoing. We expect to circulate a draft of the white paper after the new year, and then hopefully have a finalized version in time for the March meeting. Secretary Ross, as he highlighted, we are implementing very rapidly all the recommendations as they're coming in that we are able through maintaining the state level program through data liberation of BLS, through just smarter strategic collection of the data around job vacancies in this country, and then convening power of the White House to get governors talking with one another about how we can harmonize state level inputs and down to a city level inputs with government inputs. So this dialogue has been very valuable, and we've been definitely acting on it. So we appreciate that. With that, I will turn it over to Johnny Taylor, who is the co-chair of the Modernizing Candidate Recruitment and Training Practices. So maybe if you'll give us an update on your great work.
All right, fairly quickly. First of all, thank you, Ivanka, and frankly everyone involved. You all might imagine when we initially decided to join the board, Sean was invited. There were naysayers who thought this was just a political kind of show thing, and the fact of the matter is, Ivanka, you said there would be deliverables, and changes would occur. And so being able to go back to our 310,000 members and say, BLS, that meeting we had in our office, that we're actually doing something. The JOLTS report is actually going to become more widespread and useful to HR practitioners. Means a lot, so thank you. Mr. Governor, when I first visited your great state, I left here, there's a story, I left here with a spider bite and I remained in the hospital for a week after leaving the great state of Indiana. And he wrote me personally, Brown Recluse, literally hospitalized. He said, I want to make up. Well, today you did. You did. Visiting with those young ladies today, this was forever. It would change my sort of worldview of the importance of this work. So thank you. So our working group's first set of recommendations focused on identifying where people who are out of the workforce, where they're located. All of us have heard the headlines of, 7 million open jobs and 5.8 million or 6 million people looking, and thus there's this big gap, labor shortage. The reality is, you go talk to a lot of working or non-working Americans in certain parts of this country, and they say, I don't know. I don't believe there's a skills shortage. I don't think there's a people shortage because there's high unemployment in my neighborhood or in my hood, as they would say. And so what was really important for us to undertake here is an exercise in finding out where these people are and how can we link them with employment. Employers say they need people, and you had a significant number of Americans saying, but I don't know where these jobs are. So the good news is we have figured that out. That's good. Our focus on the remainder, however, of the working group is to make recommendations on what steps and effective practices employers, those employers that we represent, can implement to modernize their candidate recruitment. Because again, there's a big disconnect. People are saying, I don't have jobs, and you're saying you don't have employers law or employees. We're saying we've got to do some matchmaking. And it requires technology and research and all of that, and Mary Ann and we're working on. So that's what we're doing. However, to do that, we figured we first needed to draft a vision statement to describe what we hope to achieve by modernizing Canada. Nice word, but what does that mean? My thought is that we need to be clear about what we're aiming for. We can then collect and share effective practices, and sometimes we study effective. Don't know about modernizing that differently. There's a lot of money, a lot of activity, activities that don't work. I think there are learnings that come from that as well. And so we want to talk to employers about what worked and what didn't work. And then we want to figure out what employers to keep talent and upskill their workforce, as well as to identify additional areas that employers want to focus on to help themselves and their employees succeed. Outside, my wonderful co-chairman, is unable to join us today, but he was kind enough to have him bring with me Dr. Thompson, a ton of work with my team. Maybe, my gosh, it feels like every 2 weeks this group has been meeting. And so I'll take it from here and Sheila.
Sure. Thank you, Johnny. And I'll also have some regard to the can't be here today. But Johnny, just to your point, you spent a lot of time thinking about what a vision statement is look like to bring it to life, skills-based hiring. Let me just read through brief now. I'll share a few points about what we're thinking. Our vision statement that we proposed for is that the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board's vision that employers promote skills-based recruitment and hiring to better match potential employees with in-demand jobs. The advisory board encourages all employers to examine the skills and competencies needed in their workforce, broaden the out of investment skills, and promote workers with lifelong skills development. This approach will make it possible for employers and job candidates to gain the skills needed to be successful in the workforce. I think the words with a lot of intentionality because there are a couple of themes here. One is skill-based recruiting. We really want to make sure we're matching jobs and skills there, and making sure that that's really can be sorted in. We want to also make sure that on the employer side, we can look at job descriptions, making sure that they're articulated properly, identify the skills, classifications, and we have a number of good examples of some of the big guys who are doing just that. Third thing, which is really important, is that jobs are changing very quickly. So we need to make sure now that we're recruiting and identifying our talent, that as we recruit and hire them, we continue to train. And so that was another critical piece. But we would very much welcome the advisory board's view if we got it right, if there's things that we're missing, thoughts or reaction on that.
As you digest it, I think it's really, as we thought about this, we looked at it from the perspective of what are the barriers. So oftentimes the bachelor's degree requirement, it could be an individual doesn't need a bachelor's degree on the way in. Over time, they could achieve that, and thus the investment in training and development. We were excluding people who could otherwise do the work. Or practically, someone says a job requires 5 to 7 years experience or get a bachelor's degree, when in fact someone could realistically do it with 2 years experience. So a lot of this exercise was about forcing. When you talk about modernizing, a lot of that was 20th century thinking. You need this degree at that school and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is we know that people show up very differently. They may have gotten their skills while they were in this facility. So as opposed to just looking at a resume and showing a gap in time, it's not that you were away for 3 years in prison. The real question is, what did you do during those 3 years? And if you gained a really good set of skills that is useful to Apple in software development, then that's a good future employee for you. So that's really what this is about, is truly modernizing our mindset. There's a paradigm shift that's required on the HR side and employer side.
Add to that really quickly, where I think we're really important, especially from the higher education side, is that it starts to shift the practice of these very broad brushstroke kind of criteria, like you mentioned, like you need this credential or degree, or you need this number of years of experience. It really shifts it to what are the competencies required to be successful in the role we're hiring for. Benefit of also collaborating with partners like Learning Class and MC, that it also gives tons of value to the individual speaking opportunities, because now they can understand, like, given what I've learned and what I experienced or what curriculum I went through, etc., I can now have unfolded to me all the opportunities I can pursue as a result. So how do I translate my learning into pathways to opportunity I can pursue, rather than I hold some credential and who's looking for that credential? It dramatically changes the scope of how an individual thinks about their pathways. I think it ties into one of our other things around promoting multiple pathways, because there's just a greater understanding as to what am I learning and gaining because of the experience, what does that open up to me as to the opportunity. So it's a great step in that direction.
On that, my day job is teaching undergrads, so I have a little bit of a window, and it's remarkable to think about it from their perspective how much a job ad is about what they're going to do for the company and less about what the company is going to do for them. And I would love to see your group consider encouraging companies to say, this is the initial step in this journey. Here's where you're going to go next. Here's what the company is going to do for you in terms of training. You just really rarely see that on a job board.
I just add too, as we looked at the vision statement and we were cataloging best practices, one thing that became clear is that it's really critical to try to. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. We've got to continue to evolve. And just along those lines, maybe from a visa perspective, I wanted to share with the group that in connection with the advisory board meeting today, we're actually launching a new certificate program for the payments industry to really bring people into a critical technical part of our work to be dispute resolution professionals. We're going to fund 500 new scholarship programs to do that, just as a way for another path of another opportunity for those to do it. So we're really excited about launching that in connection with the advisory.
Really exciting.
Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
Just one of encouragement, Johnny's heard this from me before, as this work continues, looking upstream into really the baseline, which is going to be youth and our future workforce, and how these components connect back and how we can connect them back so that this is getting embedded much earlier in life before they even get to a work experience.
Are there any other comments from the group before we segue? Really, really great work, Bobby and Johnny, and I think as you move forward, I think also encouraging companies to think about skills in a more holistic way. We talked a little bit today about the importance of the soft skills, and I think oftentimes employers tend to list the skills that are the hard skills without where we all know that the soft skills are often that which makes the person the most valued employee and ultimately successful over the arc of their career. So I would think about maybe broadening out the word skills to be inclusive of that definition. With that, Governor Holcomb, do you want to kick us off and share with us some of the great work you're doing around data transparency and connecting workers with the skills to employers seeking those skills?
Yes, happy to, and just hearing the discussion and talking about ROI, and happy employee to share a recent testimonial that one formerly incarcerated individual shared with me to put ROI into perspective. It said that I used to wake up and look through bars. I now wake up and look into the eyes of my family every morning. So that kind of frames up what we're here for, and the urgency that is before us and upon us. And just, again, thankful, as Johnny said, thankful for the opportunity to co-chair this working group. Thankful to have worked with Bill McDermott, and really excited for Jennifer Morgan coming on board, the whole SAP team and everything they brought to bear to date. And really want to put a shout out to the opportunity that we had to host October 15th and 16th. We brought our working groups here to Indianapolis to be able to do a further deep dive into how we're going to break down these barriers in terms of sharing data, legal and otherwise, how burdensome it can be, both at the state level, private sector, federal level, and we really were able to bring forward some recommendations that for our next meeting as well, and highlight. We created some years back, my predecessor actually, the Management Performance Hub, we call it MPH, back to the racetrack, miles per hour. But everything we're trying to do is get data to state government data to operate at the speed of private sector businesses as well, to be able to meet those demands. And there are some challenges that come with that, but its mission is so that all of our state agencies and by extension federal agencies as well get to share data and let that data drive decision making, the whole process, and ultimately the policies that we put forward, the things that the state of Indiana values. Easier said than done, but we've learned a lot along the way, and we're hopeful that other states can also pick up that approach. We brought in chief data officers and general counsels on that October 15th, 16th meeting, primarily focused on, again, three fronts: the federal regulation and clarification issue. When you think about how this data bounces around into different programs, I talked about policy, but programs and TANF, SNAP, UI, unemployment insurance, how we're connecting all those points of entry and exit, all those kind of pain points along the way, and how we address those. We talked about a federal data sharing clearinghouse. This is, again, like our MPH, Management Performance Hub, our repository that's interactive from a federal perspective as well. And then we'll also have some recommendations on more guidance recommendations in terms of data sharing and the documents that will go with that. So I just teed that up for Keon. If you want to comment further, elaborate on some of the things that we've uncovered and next steps going forward. All right. There, I sped through my update. Perfect.
I have just one quick question on that. Working on a common lexicon is one of the things that occurred in various states where you interact with the federal government. You just couldn't even get a system. The systems could talk the language. That's part of the work that I'll take that. I think one of the key elements of interoperable language does have to have that ontology framework. Allow the skills and competencies that we talked about in the prior one actually be understood across players, across sectors, across learning, across experiences. That ontology framework is actually I think that in many ways, Governor, you're already highlighting some of the challenges, especially when you're trying to advance things around data, can be bogged down somewhat in regulation and the complexity of it, etc. But I would say that Indiana is anyway definitely a leading state in many regards. In many regards around workforce development. Just a quick plug in this background is that we were founded over 20 years ago by governors of Western states, but Governor Bannon over 20 years ago from the great state of Indiana actually threw Indiana into the Western states, apparently, over 20 years ago, and was actually one of the founding governors of WGU, and that's continued since then. Governor Daniels was the first to have a public-private partnership with private nonprofit institutions, public in terms of state leadership, where almost 10 years now we established the WGU Indiana state affiliate. And so I think what we're seeing is that the diagnosis of the challenges, the common language of it, everything else like that is complex. However, we will say that the interoperable learning records themselves, they are addressing the master issues by both the issuers of them and the consumers of that. By that, what we use employers, education, that they're the issuing side of what are the learning and the skills and competencies I'm requiring. The consumer side of that, the employers, again, the institutions of learning as well. And so the working group, it actually presented that white paper back in September, and it described the need for this interoperable learning record. Essentially, this digital filing has the ability to actually store the credentials and competencies the individual possesses, and having acquired that through education, through training that was provided by employers or otherwise, and really capturing that means by which can be utilized by all the different parties of that. Again, the issue is the consumer. So many of the organizations that are represented here and otherwise have contributed to that effort. You already discussed the need for companies to hire based upon workers' skills rather than credentials. And the interoperable learning record is a means by which that can also enable that. And so there were three kind of key recommendations that I want to just give a preview for that, and Keon will take us further into the details of that. And so since the white paper's publication, we have actually increased our collaboration among these organizations. And so we've effectively laid out in that report approved by the advisory board, the White House team took the pen on assembling a story of the ILR efforts. We published those findings, so those findings have been published at www.commerce.gov/American so you can discover more about all of the efforts that exist out there. That inventory really provided a lot of insights into that landscape, and the reality of it is there are many more than we might have otherwise assumed, and so it became as much a challenge about convening. For example, right here in Indiana, the Commission for Higher Education developed a transcript program that is now being extended in two important ways. First, it includes work-based learning, such as apprenticeships into
learner record. Second, it also is into post-secondary education programs as well. And so it starts to connect both learning or work-based or experience-based learning as well as the post-secondary education programs. But as great as these projects are that are listed in the inventory, they each lack one or more key conditions of the interoperable learning record. Two key conditions are that one, the records have to be verifiable and interoperable, as the interoperable learner record implies. In this context, it means using open standards and common frameworks to enable the data to be machine readable, exchangeable, and also actionable across technology systems. So when appropriate, that should also be open access. So recommendation 2 was really the project-dependent pilot programs. This was really to develop and align stakeholders work toward widespread piloting and adoption of ILRs. The White House actually has continued to engage these stakeholders in advancing this particular recommendation. For example, the President's Forum, of which WG is a member, we held a roundtable with the White House in October to discuss how to best pilot learning records. The adoption is a key part of that. Just quickly as a background, the President's Forum is an innovation collaborative comprised of nearly 2 dozen higher education institutions that are focused on really advancing innovation in education to opportunity and how do we increase that link. And many of these institutions are already significant leaders in this space. And so the other key thing is one of our policy advisory board members, the U.S. Chamber, it also recently announced its plans to work with the network. That network is a voluntary network of over 300 organizations and 700 professionals. They're trying to build the necessary data infrastructure to make the ILRs truly interoperable. WGU, again, is a proud member of that T3 Innovation Network, and we're really excited to support the work around what is called the Open Skills Stack Initiative. It's really the ability to create this cross-institutional commitment to an open skills machine-readable standard that will become a foundation for interoperability. When you have that in an institution, you can start creating a critical mass on adoption as well. And the goal ultimately there is to really foster a vibrant pilot. Lastly, that T3 network, by the way, it will leverage over $2 million in existing investments. It's not only a well-represented but a well-funded initiative. We're quite excited by Lumina's support for that. Tom, also with the Chamber, supporting that. Walmart's also been a large support of that as well. So lastly, and this is where I'll give it to you, is the recommendation is really about standing up pilots. And so we have Keanu, again, joining us here from SAP, kind of introduced the ILR to us through the eyes of Lydia. And let me transition to you. Let us take us through that.
Right. Thanks, Scott, for that wonderful setup, and thank you, Governor Holcomb, and your team for your leadership on the data transparency working group, and also for being really gracious to us in Indianapolis. It's my privilege to dive into an update on the interoperable learning record and workstream. I briefed Mike to CEO Jen Morgan earlier, and she's excited about the progress. She's also excited to contribute to the momentum of this board and the success in 2020. Like Scott alluded to, in September, I walked through the journey of Olivia, a persona introduced in the white paper on interoperable learning records. And at the heart of Olivia's journey is her desire to maximize her potential. But there's friction that gets in the way of success from cradle to career. I outlined a future vision where a foundation of skills mapping, technical standards and protocols, and data sharing can allow us to harness technology that exists today, build simple, portable, and verifiable records of the what, where, and when of an individual's skills, education, and employment. Such a foundation can spur innovation that reduces the friction Olivia faces, whether she's deciding between the 738,428 unique academic credentials in the United States Or when Olivia could use a record of her own job milestones to make the case that she's ready for a leadership position. In September, I said one of the key pillars for ILR are standards and protocols, because they give us an intuitive way to interact with and communicate about credentials. Because the ILR ecosystem is fundamentally a multi-sided platform, enabling it requires convening the different participants of the platform. Folks like HRIS vendors, recruiting platforms, educators, and employers. For ILRs to have a chance at being widely useful, these stakeholders need to convene and discuss open standards that can be the scaffolding for application developers, like those who are in the last mile program, who have great ideas that can make a meaningful impact on the American workforce. I want to be clear, no one organization should define the standard scaffolding for all use cases. The American labor market is way too complex and way too diverse. An example from my life. I spend most Saturdays woodworking, and imagine if we didn't have a standard measure for height, width, and length. And I go to Home Depot here in Indianapolis, I buy a tape measure, and it measures differently than the tape measure I had back home in San Francisco. I'd have to adjust the plan to the table that I was built. Now imagine my hobby becomes a business and people from all over the world are ordering my table. I'd have to rely on different specifications for different milling machines and all of my different manufacturing companies. As my business scales, my headache gets a little bit bigger. I have to list my product in ways that my customers can use their signature to figure out my table, this is their living room. Nobody gets excited about standards when it comes to length, width, and height. But that's a really good thing, because a boring standard is a good standard. Whether you're building tables or apps, standards that is mature ensure stability, functionality, and also facilitates the commercialization of technological solutions that can solve a lot of problems faced by individuals, businesses, and organizations. Okay. Standards that are relevant to ILRs exist today, but those standards, for them to really fully mature, they require field testing, technical guidance, and eventual adoption. Last month, the White House convened many HR and education data standards implementations. And while I was at the meeting, it became clear that stakeholders in an ILR ecosystem need to join forces with these standards organizations to help drive forward the development of digital credentials. All right. I know to talk about standards is boring, but boring standards are good ones, and good standards are a foundation that can work for ILRs. But what happens when we do have this foundation? The Data Transparency Working Group, alongside a design team at FAC, imagined the future where we kind of solved it. And so we envisioned what an ILR can look like in Olivia's hands. And I am excited to walk through a bit of Olivia's journey of this. She had what we were calling a universal employment record with internet. Forgive me if my mom calls during this. I'll see you. I texted her this morning and I was on my way to prison. I'm not sure how she'll take that. So let's find out what this looks like, right? Well, working toward her associate science degree in nursing, Olivia usually charts her progress because each time she completes the class, her nursing school issues a credential that ties to Olivia's digital ID. All she has to do is sync this record as each new credential is stored alongside things like her high school diploma or past work experience. Developers can also create different views of Olivia's experience, whether by credentials or by skills. As she works toward the nursing degree, Olivia can see overlapping training pathways that lead to something like a certificate in becoming a medical administrative assistant. She can see which pathways to an MA certificate she can start today by, say, enrolling in an online class, or start next month by enrolling in a nursing. When she gets her MA, it's issued digitally and synced directly to a record. With this certificate in hand, she can start applying for jobs that help her create her way through the system. And it also begins to shine a light on the next step in her professional journey. Applications built on a foundation of standards for ILRs will be much like career GPS helping Olivia navigate toward her fullest potential. This is only a vision of an ILR, but in reality, this group's exploration has made it real. An ILR isn't so much a singular app as it is a scaffold that folks can use to build applications that address real pain points for employers, educators, policymakers, and ultimately livers. No one else understands this priority position. So we've been really looking at how do we get to reality? To prime the ILR flywheel, we need to begin laying a foundation for both the creation and the consumption of ILR. And to do so, we suggest a partner in pilot strategy. And here's the app in the data transparency working group. I think it's simple, but members of this advisory board, if you could lean on your HRIS vendors and also the recruiting platforms and talent marketplaces you use to fill your ranks of talent, to simply convene with open data standards organizations in addition to open initiatives like the QC Innovation Network in Q1 2020, and let them know that the goal in convening is just to have a discussion, to draw alignment and to explore whether we can have consensus around a few technical challenges to stand up a pilot in Q2 2020 of a verified employment history record, just a sliver of what an ILR can do. Now, for some of you, SAP is your HRS vendor, so we have a little bit of a head start because it's something we take. For this pilot of employment history, we can start simple, say with an individual's current job title and their start date, so that they can verify their resume or their profile on a platform like Indeed or LinkedIn. So that a potential employer can verify that, yes, Tim Conville is the data scientist at SAP, or that, yes, Tim Cook really is the CEO of Apple. Such a pilot would drive forward the maturation of data standards that can be the foundation for ILR. And it can also be a beachhead for credentials adjacent to employment records like education. It also deploys ILRs in a tactically valuable way. Part of the reason why SHRM estimates that it takes more than 40 days and $4,000 to fill an open vacancy in the United States is that employers often verify, an applicant's job history. This is something that's done over and over and over again, when really you just need to verify the fact that I've worked at SAP as a data scientist. That's immediate value that an ILR pilot like this could deliver, but it requires consensus and commitment to the creation and consumption of ILR. No one organization should, or frankly can, do this alone, but that's why we're all here. We can leverage our collective convening power to build something that matters. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass it back to the verified president of Western Governors University, Scott.
Required to really have all of the learning experience, the work experience that heard, and all the data about that acquired into an ILR. It's not, but the human capital management platforms, especially like that of SAP and others, like that really helps us unlock a lot of that information. But any pilot that lacks the worker's experience as part of that record is definitely it's notable that institutions like California College already are advancing significant adoption that are the data where they have one app records that workers, also their educational pathways. But this ultimately leads to the question, I think, for the group, especially for members like Doug and Barbara and others to get perspective here, is that we all understand, I think, the potential of the interoperable learning record, especially when you're modernizing the training practices and shifting skills and competencies. But the question is where would the ILR's greatest potential value be for you as a leader? And then how do we also bring more businesses in or even participate in perspective on those two questions?
As was pointed out, our research says it takes on average 40 days to complete a background check, other than verify that they've worked. And it is really kind of ludicrous. Every time I go to a new employer, they have to go all the way back and review every job that I've had since Blockbuster, right? And some of those companies no longer exist. And so Blockbuster, et cetera, is just incredibly expensive. HR team, our HR professionals, I should say, but specifically my own shop, and the significant amount of time during which you lose employees. A lot of the employee becomes frustrated, and when we talk about this labor participation rate, people who need to get a job quickly, think about someone who's been formerly incarcerated and has to live a finite period of time. We tell them, I'm interested in you. It's going to take me 40 days to convert. It's losing people as well, but it also costs a lot of money.
This is not the time or place to get into all the detail, but the way this gets funded to start it up and to drive ongoing development needs to be discussed. And for those of us that don't use just SAP, use an alternative piece of software, how are we going to create true interoperability and have this work for the long term? It reminds me a little bit about of the blockchain challenge with food safety. You have to get the costs out so that there's no barrier to entry for all the participants that you want in this platform, which puts pressure on margins for those that actually built it, so that there's a tension here that you may have completely figured out, but I think for Walmart we would need to get into that detail.
Up to, you're viewing it from a corporation point of view, right? I would give some thought through looking at it through the lens of the individual looking for a job. And so, take something like LinkedIn. There's, I don't know how many millions of people on LinkedIn. But if they adopted a standard vocabulary of dealing with skills, it would quickly permeate the corporate environment. And so I wouldn't just look at it from the enterprise. Corporations are so slow when you deal with enterprise systems. Nothing gets SAP. It just takes a long time to do things. And but the person, the individual can ignite this. But because the power is with the individual, not the corporation. So I don't know. That's just a different lens to look at it. Maybe it doesn't make any sense. But
I think that's even to the prior point I made around the individual, when you have modernized practices around skill development,
right.
Now also see opportunities by more potential. Your reference to LinkedIn is a great example where you have an unverified record. You definitely have things of a platform where individuals are verified data.
That's right.
Exposed to potential employers.
And it can force a common vocabulary, which is so critical in this.
I think one thing that's interesting with employers like us is that both of us are consumers and issuers of learning onto the records. So we are also thinking about work experience, stackability of that work into credential programs as well. And then it goes the other way too, which is that you as a consumer of the ILR, because you're looking at candidates, then they get provided training and everything else, so you're also issuing records. And so that individual perspective is probably the most important lens that we have around the ILR.
Power that today's tools provide. So, I think that's right on. I think what's going to happen is naturally employers, large and small, will begin to ask, what language do I have to speak in order to reach my target candidate?
One thought I had, maybe I'll just offer too, and this is to you, Kian, and the other providers, is one of the thoughts is SAP has a number of value for clients. Workday may have a number of value for clients. We can potentially work directly with the technology providers and say, who are your trusted customers? WQ itself has many direct employer relationships that potentially fall in the pilot. That may be a way to ensure that we have a more conducive piloting for the project, the pilots themselves, and then also adoption of the market scale. Right?
We want to stick on because, there's a pathway here. I think there's been a lot of work put into thinking about the obstacles, the barriers, but also our ability to convene to actually make this a reality. And I do think this could be absolutely transformative. I think it could be transformative to business large, but also small. If you think about the cost for a small business employer to verify the credentials of potential candidates coming in who may not have an HR department. It's an individual calling that local high school to see if the potential worker did in fact graduate, et cetera, et cetera. So it's transformative in terms of time and efficiency and of course, expense for employers. But to Tim's point, I think it could be transformative to the individual worker as well. Having all of that information is incredibly empowering. So why can't that worker who's in a zip code be pushed information that, hey, your verified skills match the criteria of a job that X employer is seeking in the same market? So I think that the two of those together create something that should exist, that we have the wherewithal to make exist based on existing technology and would really superpower the American worker. And I think also lead to people wanting to develop those incremental talents and skills and to create the condition of lifelong learning so that their record is dynamic and not static.
Thought about this. Scott, annually, it's not an advertisement, but we in the World Fire Safety Organization, every HRIS vendor that are conference, the largest with 22,000 people. And so if somehow we should think about doing this, since they're already there, maybe it's an add-on of an additional workshop. Now there's no additional travel there because they've developed to internal people. We could have literally everyone be there. It's June, so we follow up. I might add on already there.
That's the point. I'm encouraged by this as well, and I think the application with part-time employees is significant because, in our world, we have massive numbers of part-time employees, and their transient nature is far greater, especially as they're younger and growing and developing. So I think as this gets, not just the lexicon, but built, the applicability to part-time workforce is huge when it comes to this as well.
Thank you again, and Governor, very, very exciting, and to build the great work he's doing now, Jennifer, Scott, and the whole team. And I guess just to the rest of the board, please continue to contribute to that talent to solving this problem, because I think this is the development of it and creating the enabling environment for this technology could be a tremendous legacy for the work product of this council and could deliver a very real inefficiency that exists today. So very exciting stuff. With that, Tim, would you like to kick us off and share with the group the work that's been done around rebranding the many opportunities that exist in America and for career success today?
So thanks, Ivanka, and thanks for your leadership on this important initiative, and thanks, Governor Holcomb, for inviting us to the state of Indiana, and thanks to the Department of Corrections here for a very inspiring tour this morning. Along with Co-Chair Jenny Rometty, who couldn't join us today, I'm pleased to report on the progress of developing a campaign to promote multiple pathways to career success working group. As you know, our working group has two goals. The first is to build heightened awareness of the growing number of pathways to well-paying employment in the United States, including high-quality education and training programs that equip employees with their valuable and marketable skills. And then the second is to advance local, state, and federal policies as well as employer and educational practices to sustain and expand these pathways. We're making substantial progress on both goals ahead of our planned January 2020 campaign launch. I'd like to share this progress with you and then invite your comments, questions, and any suggestions that you might have. Before continuing, it's helpful to reflect on the question, why are we undertaking this campaign and why now? And while we're at it, why are so many companies, organizations, and leaders coming together to support it? The answer is because how people work and the tools they rely on are changing very rapidly, and with it, our expectations of the skills that all people need to be successful in their jobs and careers. Today, companies like Apple and others, including those around this table, increasingly need to employ great problem solvers, people who are curious, who collaborate well and lead by example, and who can work horizontally as well as vertically. We see these as the necessary skills of all of our employees must have to compete effectively in today's high-performance environment. What's also changing is how we prepare today's youth for work and help working-age individuals learn the new skills our global economy increasingly demands. Once the primary driver of opportunity, the four-year degree is now one of many paths to a successful career. In fact, as I've told you in the past, at Apple, over 50% of our employees don't have classic college degrees. Fortunately, we're seeing a shift in attitudes across this country as thousands of businesses, training providers, community colleges, municipal agencies, even our armed forces are stepping up. These institutions are offering more skills and career development opportunities flexibly priced and flexibly delivered to just about everyone in any industry sector. Young adults and working-age individuals are now able to develop in-demand career skills through customized career tech programs, innovative apprenticeships, learn and earn programs, and short-duration coding boot camps. They can access these programs in school, after school, through clubs at work, after work, and online. And they come away poised to contribute to America's workplaces with industry-recognized stackable credentials and certifications, technical licenses, and yes, even four-year university degrees. Most importantly, these opportunities are helping young people and adults find confidence and personal fulfillment, empowering them to overcome outdated attitudes about what higher education should look like. You saw a fair amount of that this morning. That's a good thing for everyone, but especially for the two-thirds of Americans without a bachelor's degree for whom college wasn't the right fit or was too expensive or just out of reach. Still, we have a big challenge in front of us. Despite our efforts to change the narrative around higher education, data is showing the message isn't getting through. Too many people who have concluded that college is not for them or that they'll never have what it takes to land the next big job also don't believe they have alternatives. Either they're unaware of what education and training options exist, or they don't think pursuing them will carry weight with employers. We have to change that perception. We have to inform people about the options they have at their fingertips. We have to demonstrate that those trainings are worth their time and energy, and we have to convince them with the right tools they can change their lives and the lives of their families. In our roles as employers, educators, and policymakers, we must give people hope about their futures and the tools to make their jobs and their goals a reality. That's why we're engaging in the campaign. We want to inspire people to find programs that will launch them towards successful careers. Just as much, we aim to energize education and training providers across America to expand and grow, to maintain their rigor and focus, and to continue empowering individuals from all walks of life. Our campaign is about galvanizing business, education, and government into collective action. We believe at the end of the day that every young adult and every working age individual has the fundamental right to take charge of their futures and livelihoods, no matter who they are, where they live, what their education circumstance, or where they come from. I'd like to turn now to the status of the campaign. You'll recall at our September meeting, the board unanimously recommended to the President's National Council for the American Worker the development of a private sector-led national campaign to raise awareness and promote multiple pathways to well-paying jobs for all Americans. This national campaign would include a year-long workforce readiness advertising campaign to drive awareness and a widespread mobilization of business, labor, education, and nonprofit sectors to support, promote, and permanently expand multiple career pathway options for young adults and working adults. Since September, members of the working group and others have been hard at work to make this a reality. We're on track for the campaign's launch at the end of January. Here are some key aspects. The campaign is being led and managed by the Ad Council in close association with IBM and Apple. Together, we are working on behalf of a growing number of private and nonprofit sector leaders, including everyone here today, who supports the notion of multiple pathways to career success. We've engaged advertising industry leaders, 8R, which is an Ogilvy agency, and OMD, which are providing significant pro bono creative and media placement services. The campaign will include ad placements utilizing television, radio, digital, social, print, and out-of-home advertising, such as billboards and bus stops. It will drive individuals to an inspirational call-to-action website experience with data, resources, stories, and the essential next steps to help users chart their own course. And we're mobilizing high-profile support from the full range of private sector businesses, unions, nonprofit organizations, government agencies, and education institutions, which are delivering the essential education and training pathway services that this campaign is all about. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the campaign today, but I can tell you we want to inspire individuals to action, featuring a range of alternative career paths. They will create a sense of wow. There's a place I go to do something I love, and I didn't know something like that even existed. What else out there could be for me? The campaign is being developed based on strong research into the aspirations of 16 to 20-year-olds and older adults in the middle of their careers who realize they need to update their skills to stay relevant. Many people are working to make this campaign successful. One of the ways everyone around this table can help is by linking your own career pathway programs to the campaign website so that anyone can access and potentially benefit from them. For instance, the website will include direct links to IBM's P-Tech program and Apple's Everyone Can Code with Swift programs. We want to make sure that we highlight your programs as well. Our second goal, our policies and practices to permanently expand multiple career pathway opportunities for everyone. The working group's intention is to present to the board with a slate of recommendations for review and approval at our next meeting in March before they are referred to the National Council for the American Worker. And I'd like to share with you today the direction that we're currently headed. The working group is focused on two policy objectives. The first is to dramatically expand access, the range of education and training pathway opportunities available to all Americans. And as I've mentioned, they include apprenticeships, learn and earn programs, coding academies and boot camps, online certification, after-school programs and clubs, and others. The second is to ensure that these opportunities are held to the highest standards of quality and excellence. Consumers and their prospective employers need to know that the education and training they're relying on actually does what they advertise and provides individuals with the skills they need to begin or extend their careers. Access and quality are the foundation of opportunity and prosperity. They motivate our leadership of companies and institutions, and they are the rubric by which we measure America's workforce readiness. Our recommendations will be organized around actions federal, state, and local governments can take, but also what businesses, unions, educational institutions, and nonprofit organizations can do to support education and training pathways. Here are 7 recommendations we're considering. First, sustained public investment in career pathway programs that show strong evidence of success. Second, public and private incentive funding for emerging technology-driven pathway delivery models in key in-demand industry sectors. Third, extension of student financial aid eligibility to high-quality, short-duration career pathway programs that create opportunities for people at all stages of their career. Fourth, incentive funding for high school career tech and two-year community or technical college programs that prioritizes high-demand industries, and effective targeted assistance at the elementary and middle school levels to help younger children from all walks of life develop the habits and skills they will need to succeed, especially within STEM subjects and the arts. Fifth, eliminate overly burdensome cross-state occupational licensing barriers where they are unnecessary in order to attract top talent no matter where that talent is located. Sixth, ensure career pathway investments are held to the highest standard by expanding the use of existing accountability instruments such as the state eligibility training provider list and the higher education accreditation process. And seventh, expand availability of career pathway performance information to the public and make the data user-friendly and understandable. These are just a few of the policy ideas on the table. Each increases access and guarantees quality across a variety of programs reaching all industry sectors. We'll report more in March when we'll have our full set of recommendations. With that, I'd invite your comments, questions, and suggestions. And to get started, I welcome the board's input on the initiatives your companies and organizations are working on to encourage skill development and how you could promote them as a part of our campaign. Thanks very much.
I can lead off a little bit on that topic, Jim, and thanks for your leadership here on all fronts. It's been truly remarkable. And September, when we met at the Boys and Girls Club in Washington, D.C., I talked a little bit about how we've been focused, thanks to the inspiration from this group, on introducing a Youth Workforce Readiness Act. That was introduced in the House last week, and it's expected in the Senate before the end of the year. So this is really exciting, all aimed at illuminating and bringing to life the Pathways campaign, and specifically, to Tim's point, expanding access to programs in the earlier ages, but really up and through the teenagers and early work years, but targeting these essential skills, these elements that are so critical for early and youth to be prepared when they enter the workforce. So we're excited about that. It's aimed at the out-of-school time space, certainly workforce readiness, but essential skill development, exploration, career and job exploration, and work-based learning. So this has been a long journey, but inspired by all the work that has come out of this committee and certainly this group that we've been focused on in terms of all the public or government piece of the target here. So we're excited about that. It's a significant amount of funding that it does come to be, and will impact millions of young people, billions, if all works out the way we hope. So encouraged about really the impetus and inspiration that's come from this group and helped us lead in this direction. So that's a great outcome so far. Thank you.
Yeah, there have been so many great outcomes. I have to tell you, this is what I'm most excited about. Our three young kids, the oldest to be fourth grade, probably 3 times a week at the dinner table, she says, hey, what am I going to do when I grow up? What am I going to do? And I find it fascinating that you really have no idea. Many of them have no idea what the opportunities are. It helps them see what those potential opportunities are. I would offer that one of the most important things that we can all do, and one of the most important that companies and trade associations can do, is to help amplify this campaign for our social challenge. I know that Josh will be all over this at the BRT, and this will be something that I think you will be very excited about. And I think we can make sure we push that as this goes forward. The other thing I think we can do is as you mentioned, we each can have a role in expanding
work in this space. So for the NAM, obviously, the problems we have in manufacturing, perception of manufacturing, not just among young people, but among parents as well. That's why we've kicked off, we'll be kicking off next year, calling our Creators One Tour, and it really will help amplify the work, policy board, and also this campaign. Our goals are pretty significant, quite honest with the states, with that hands-on experience with modern manufacturing. It's all about giving them an idea of some certifications that they might achieve, some of the skills that can help them into a career in manufacturing opportunities are for a career. Governor, I have to tell you, one of the reasons I'm so inspired about what we saw here today is the second chance for our tour, and we have thought leadership and dialogue throughout the country on programs like this, programs that are different than others, because we all have this 500,000 jobs today. A lot of folks out there that we haven't even thought about. This campaign do that as well. So let me just tell you a couple of the goals of our campaign, and they translate quite well into the work of this group. We want to cut the skills gap for manufacturing by the year 2020. We have 2.4 million unfilled jobs. We want to cut that by 600,000 through this Creators One effort. We want to increase by 25% the number of students who are enrolled in technical and vocational schools. And this one is, I think, we want to increase by 25% the number of students enrolled in apprenticeships as well. This last number I'll give you, I think, is the one that's probably the most important. 27% parents today would encourage their child to consider career in manufacturing. I want to raise that to 50%. I think the campaign that we're talking about today can provide so many eye-opening opportunities or opening eyes of young people that is available. Thank you.
I want to talk briefly about another opportunity. I had the opportunity, as we gathered with my colleagues across the country, to give an update on what we're doing with the Workforce Advisory Board. So if you want to amplify the opportunities, the governors are ready to go. They are excited about what they're doing in the states. They want an opportunity to talk about it and to highlight what they're doing. Every single governor, every single state is dealing with workforce issues, and they are excited about what you're doing, excited about the progress, and they want to be a part of it. So whether it's work-based learning, we launched our Future Ready Iowa initiative. The legislature funded it last year. 70% of Iowans in the workforce have education or training beyond high school by the year 2025. That was $16 million that we allocated. We just did our first round of Last Dollar Scholars, which is apprenticeships, 2-year associate's degree, targeting high school students or adults that want to be reskilled or upskilled, all tied to high-demand jobs. We allocated almost $6 million first semester. Will impact 5,800 Iowans. We will get the whole $13 million out the door by the time we initiate the spring enrollment. And in addition to that, for employers out there, we did an employer innovation fund where the state will match up to $50,000 for what programs, but opportunity to try the state, figure out what's working, you scale that. So they're engaged, they want to be a part of it, they want to talk about what they're doing, incredible stories to share, just like we do. And so thank you for the work that we're doing, because it is making a difference, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Tim, I know I already have the microphone, so I apologize, but I wanted to just comment on Governor Reynolds. So many of our business trade associations have state-level departments as well. So, for instance, the Iowa Association of Business Industry works very closely with the governor and the administration. Those are the types of organizations that I think also help amplify this. It doesn't have to just be at the national level. So our Manufacturing Institute has a lot of these organizations throughout the country.
They actually led 35 employer innovation summits across the state of Iowa. We saturated the state and brought business and industry and higher education and individuals to the table to figure out what we could do to help provide opportunities for Iowa. So I was so grateful to ABI for what they were able to do. I mean, they took the lead on that and ran it. We're a small state, so to have 35 summits across the state of Iowa that brought industry together to talk about how collectively we can change the narrative and make a difference. It was fun to see that. We started with a goal of 7, and we ended up with 35. I think I shared the map with you when you were at Hy-Vee.
We're short on time. I just want to offer a perspective from Ira too on this point. So we're huge believers in basically a lifelong model of the future that it's almost not like sequential steps and opportunity to work in. And one of the things that we recognize in partnering actually with SEIU and United Healthcare California specifically to address nearly 500,000 unfilled allied health obstacles that we're not accessible at. And we actually invested directly in developing micro-credentials, also a staff program. So we developed our medical coding program. We're now about to launch our medical assistant program. These are highly accessible online models we have. When they acquire those, they're also not opportunity cul-de-sacs. They actually take that learning and have stackable credit that they can see programs that stack on top of that and help manage, etc. We see that opportunity also with micro-bachelors that we're introducing as credentials in the future model. We see that with even cloud certifications that we have, cybersecurity, etc. So our delivery model is much more to scale. It isn't just a standard college that we have. But we believe that degree has to be there because of the stackability and stacking. Last thing I'll say is that puts us in the campus with all of this financially eligible programs, learning programs, like we need to have the affordability because we're learning all our credentials. Affordability is still an issue that we want to pursue. So it's great policy by that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott, and Ken. It's amazing what the division has been able to do and accomplish, and great hearing the perspectives and thoughts from everyone, both on the campaign. I think, Jay, to your point, the campaign really is focused on high demand stuff. So industries where there is that demand exists. So whether it's disrupting narratives around what manufacturing looks like, or whether it's being responsive to the fact that there's an increasing need in industries like the health sector, the IT sector, that's where the campaign starts. And then we'll be able to layer onto that. So I think the more you can help contribute to the content, the action from the campaign is to drive individuals to the website, both that younger, still in school, still in high school, future worker, and that means with career worker to the website, and then from there be able to have visibility into the pathway. So thinking about the contribution to that. And I think, Governor, in reflection on what you said, and the continued focus on just convening and amplifying, combined with some of what Tim was talking about in terms of state and local issues like occupational licensures and the barriers that creates for workers who would be eligible for a job across the state lines. The National Governors Association is convening in Washington, D.C. in February, as it always does, and all of the governors from across the country come to the White House. And last year, we surveyed the governors across the nation, and the number one challenge they had was workforce, skilled workforce. So as a result of that survey, and we have the survey out again, as a result of that survey, we presented the work that we were doing and asked for their assistance on issues such as the occupational licensing challenges, data connectivity, and working with us as we liberate our data and to create this issues on a state and local level. But I put it to everyone, whether or not there would be, I think there would be a value, but what we could think about presenting to the governors when they're in one place at the White House
that helps us really move all on the state and local level with regards to policy and also the mission here. So I think we should, as a collective, put some thought into that. And it's not just one working group, across all the different working groups, to take advantage of that moment when we stop the country. Great. So with that, I'd just like to thank everyone once again for being here. It's amazing to see the great progress that's being made in between these meetings, and we're looking forward to a productive next session in March. So March 19th and June 25th. We look forward to seeing you. We're still figuring out location, but and ideas on where we go next. It will be hard to replicate the experience we've had in Indiana.
But wait, there's more. We have some moms that want to say hello and goodbye before you leave that are coming up there that we alluded to earlier. And these were made at one of our facilities just for you to remember. Indiana Wood, made in Indiana by Hooters, and makes up in Pendleton. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.